Hi and welcome back to Pathway Reflections. Today I want to speak about quite a big topic, and it's something where collectively I feel like we're all more moving towards, and something that's not to be taken lightly. So I was living in community in London, of all places, for the past 6 months. And recently I had 2 friends reach out to me asking me, what was it like? I'd love to hear your feedback on that situation and that experience. And, other people haven't actually been able to live in community. So I feel like, and I know a lot of people know that that's what they want, that's what they're calling in, and that's where we're headed. So people want to know, what's it like? What are you taking away? What are you leaving behind? What's the secret, So in this video, I really want to speak on that experience. So I have managed to travel to many different communities, but I haven't actually lived there. And obviously it's not the same when you just are there for a short period of time. So, which is quite interesting because I went to Findhorn, which is like OG community that has been around, I think, since the 60s in Scotland, and I remember going there in 2016 or 2017, back in my 20s, and I guess I didn't really think much of it, but I remember just experiencing the staff who was quite moody and just miserable, and I just, at the time, I feel like I was going through a big disillusionment of realizing that you go to these spiritual places that you think are going to be cool, and then actually you realize it's just the same thing. Just because it's got the word spiritual and it doesn't make it any different whatsoever to the rest of the world. And so that was a big realization. Because also I feel like I have a certain level of joy that I just have in my life. So yeah, anyway, who knows? Maybe he was having a bad day, whatever. But I think it really was quite obvious, left a kind of impression on me. And then a couple of years ago, I also ended up going to Auroville in India, which is another community. I spoke to someone recently as well, Vikram in Goa this year, because he actually was really involved with what's going on there. So again, big disillusionment there. If you want to watch that podcast episode with Vikram, then check it out. And I think it's 50 episode 55. But yeah, and then in London, this opportunity came up. So I decided, I really want to have this experience. New community that was being birthed. I thought, cool. I was ready to leave London, but actually this is what kind of held me in London for the time being, because I wanted to have this experience and I needed to have it. And I know that in terms of the community, there was a lot to learn. Obviously, they were trying a very bold move, and I feel like, I'm not going to name names, but if you know, then you know. But in many ways, it was a bit of a failure, is what I will say. And I'm just being honest. And I think that there was a lot that I learned from things that they did very badly, in terms of not just the community aspect, but also just the practical, logistical, operational aspect of things as well, which is just, it's got nothing to do with spirituality. It's got everything to do with business and the world, and just, a normal job that anyone would have, right? So I feel like there was so much to see of how they do it. Now, again, living in community, especially in the Western world, obviously in other countries and other communities, is very different. But here, it's a bit unusual, I would say. So in a way, it's we're doing these things that's a bit forced. It's just here you go, let's try it. Trial and error, but listen, that's how you learn, right? So I feel like in a way, this particular community was trying to do that and do something different. And then, but I feel like there's so much, it's not to be taken lightly. It's not just like, okay, bish bash bosh, because, you know, there's a lot of seriousness when it comes, and responsibility, but true responsibility. So anyway, there are so many levels. I'm not going to go into the details about this particular place because the list is endless of the complete shambles that went on. And that's a whole other story. But in terms of the community aspect of it, it was interesting. But what ended up happening here is that the community aspect ended up dwindling, and a lot of people who came there for the community realized that it's not really what they thought it was going to be, not because they had high expectations or bad expectations or whatever, but it was just because the focus became less on creating community and more on just trying to fill rooms to make money for whatever reason, maybe desperation, I don't know, but that definitely ended up happening. So that's like the backstory. I think I will leave it there. And within that, I have got a list of 12 different things that I feel like is important. So this is what my focus, what I want my focus to be on in this video, is the 12 things that I have learned about living in community, to share a bit of context and experience for other people who are going to live in community or starting their own community or whatever. So, number 1, and this is so important. So it's really, I think this is so important, even just with like having a business, or any creative idea or concept, because I like to be clear. One of my friends has always said to me, whatever relationship you're in, as long as you're moving in the same direction, then you're good. As soon as you move out of the same direction, then you've got different values, then the relationship is over. It's done, right? And I think that's so true. So number 1 is to have clear values. So it's all about alignment. Now, either you can create a system of values and then bring people in, or you can bring people in and then together you create a value system. But it is so important, and I feel like this is probably the most important thing, to have the values mapped out, clearly defined, because then that's the reference point. From there, now we can talk, now we can move. But for example, what I witnessed here in this place is people had very different conceptions of what it meant to be in a community. You know, there were vegans, there were non-vegans, there were vegetarians. Everyone was in the same kitchen. Oh, but the vegans wanted to have their own sections, and then to the meat eaters, obviously it makes sense. But like, what is this community? What's going on? What are the rules? You know? And obviously, in your value system, you can have that clearly defined, you know. Then there were people smoking next to the sauna. Other people didn't like that there was cigarette smoke next to the sauna. It's like, what's going on here, you know? So I guess I'm also touching on just having clear rules and outlines of operational procedures as well, really. Just, you know, no smoking here and whatnot. But it's important to have it all very clear. And with the values, like, you know, maybe you are a vegan community or maybe you're not, right? But where are the boundaries and the nuances within that? Or maybe it is a sober community, or maybe it isn't, or maybe it's in between, but where is that? And put that on paper and make sure everyone knows and sees it, so that everyone knows what they are participating in. And that's really it. Again, people want to be in things that they resonate with. So make sure that it's clear, and it's not just like hanging on the wall on the sideline, like some people are going to read it, some people not. No. And also, culture isn't created by just letting things go and just letting things happen and just seeing what happens. Like, that sounds like a lack of responsibility and also a mess. So I think that it's so important clearly defined. And I always bring this back to reference point of Burning Man, because I think it's such a great example. Whatever your thoughts are about Burning Man, I don't freaking care, but take that elsewhere. But the point is that Burning Man have this amazing ethos, right? And they've got very clearly defined points like radical self-expression, and it's simple and it's also short. There's not loads of explanation, but you can make it as ever however you want, right? But the point about Burning Man is that leave no trace, right? That's great. Also, that's a great idea to have in the community, right? Leave no freaking trace. Otherwise, people are going to start complaining about people leaving things here, there, messy, all this, right? But if you've put it in your values, now you've given people the self-empowerment to take that upon themselves. Hey, guys, like now, no one needs to be afraid of speaking up. Just to let you know, this is actually in the rule book, or it's not even a rule book, but this is one of the ethos of this place, is to leave no trace. So like, please clean up with yourself. And why I'm bringing Burning Man in is because when I went to Burning Man way back, the point is the people who came there for that community and they really stand for those values, they care, and they were there, and they would not hesitate to come up to some random stranger and say to them, you're wearing glitter, you're not allowed to wear glitter, because it's, they take leave no trace very seriously. And if you wear glitter, it can fall off and stay in the dust in the desert. So you're going to pick that up to yourself? Well, not really. So the point is, this is the levels. And I thought that was so amazing that people were literally taking it upon themselves to, call other people into those standards. And that's what it is. They are standards as well, right? So it's so important. Number one. Like, have your ethos. Have those values that everyone align with. And it doesn't really matter which way you do it. Either it can be you create it and then people come, or, like I said, you bring people or a certain group of people, and then, because the thing is, people who resonate will come, that's how it works. And within that, I wanted to share as well, because it's so important to allow people to be self-empowered, because it's really not healthy to have one person who's in charge of other people. But anyway, I'll come to that one later. So number 2, conflict resolution strategy. What is it? Again, be creative. I'm not telling you what it should be, but there needs to be one. When people come together, there is going to be conflict. That's what happens in all relationships, Okay, maybe not all, but it's very, very common. So what is the conflict resolution strategy? Because people are living together, right? And it's not a nice atmosphere for anyone when, sometimes you might not notice it. It might not be a thing that's even in anyone's perspective, but like sometimes it might be a small thing. Sometimes it might be a massive thing and it involves everyone, like most people. And so what is the conflict resolution strategy? And so rather than just letting things unravel on their own and letting people say things that might be unhelpful or whatever, tackle the problem at the root. Okay, we're going to, if someone has a problem with someone else, then what's the resolution for it, And again, back to the values, it would like to think that we're bringing people who are in alignment together, so that it's not a case of whatever, I don't care, I'm not going to speak to that person. Do you know what I mean? But it's more of how can we work through this because people are in alignment. But obviously it's different when you're in a space where there's a lot of people who aren't really in resonance with each other, because then it's very easy to just be like, whatever, I don't care, But ultimately, the reason why we want to live in community is because we want to be with people. So it's not because we don't want to and we want to fall out and we want to avoid confrontation. Like that's not why we're there. And I think deep down, our calling for us to live in community is to be able to move through our healing faster, because that's what happens in relationship, any kind of relationship, right? So figure out whatever your conflict resolution strategy is. And one thing that I noticed from living in communities, that again, this is it, important, put it in the values, or just highlight it. Because how can you have, some people might want to avoid it because it's difficult, because they've never done it before, because they don't know, but it's actually not that hard. But to actually sit down and have a conversation, some people might be like, no, maybe they feel threatened. There's so many things that come into it. So what is the strategy? Like, if people don't want to do it and they don't want to move through the stuff and one thing again that I found through living in community as well is that things that come up for other people is there was a time when you can just be like, okay, whatever, let them figure that out on their own. But when you're in community, there's a responsibility for everyone else, that sometimes you just have to call people out on the shadows, right? On their blind spots, because now it's going to affect other people. So now something needs to be done, So that's really that one. It's so important to have some kind of thing. Obviously, I think it's great to have conversations. Maybe perhaps it'd just be like, cool, let's let them sort it out themselves. If they need to, or if they feel like they need support, they can ask for someone else to come in. Again, it doesn't need to be one person, and like this one, I feel like this one leader thing is just, it's gone. We're way past that zone now. 3, which ties in with the conflict resolution, is non-violent communication. It's very important. This work, non-violent communication. I remember this guy who created this, what a freaking genius, honestly. It's very important. And again, people need to want to actually do it. They have to be wanting to actually, and that's why the values are so important. So obviously we're never going to just be like getting it, or some people might, but when we're still first learning about non-violent communication, we might fail at it. And that's okay, as long as we're trying. But like, it's hard to really do it, I would say. It's hard to communicate in that way, but it's very important, because otherwise people are not being heard properly, and triggers are just being triggered, and projections are just being thrown at people, and it's not helpful. So it's really important within resolving the conflict and also asking for what one needs. It's so important to be able to communicate in the way that is non-violent. So that needs to be literally from the beginning. It needs to be anchored in. It needs to be taught. It needs to be there. And again, with the intention that people are willing and they're being there because they want to do this. I think that otherwise, if we haven't got these things, it's just literally everything's up in the air. It's going to be messy, so messy, because there's no clearly defined route through the shadows that will be triggered in a community. It's just going to happen, So number 4, I was saying, to cultivate this togetherness. So obviously, because I think sometimes you go to a community and you're like, cool, I'm in the community now, but then it's like quite disenfranchised, and people aren't actually doing things together, and and again, it's like getting people to know each other. And obviously, again, that's why people come to live in community, but some people might not be as ready for that social interaction, whatever. But also, because when the conflict comes, you want people to be in the state of togetherness, rather than just thinking they can throw people on cancel culture, and again, when you've lived in a village, you've grown up in the village, and you know people in the village, there's this sense of togetherness, I think, that you won't just throw the towel out, because you know them. So it's important to like actually bring in this togetherness. Like I said, I think sometimes you can be living in community and actually people are doing different things. They're living different lives, and like it's all good and well organizing like, oh yeah, weekly meal together, or but actually I think it needs more. It needs more than that. It needs more kind of things that people want to do together, and and the together part is the important part, because yeah, but sometimes you can't, it's not like everyone's going to turn up at the same time. So again, it's like, how are we creating something that's like great, fun, that people want to come to, but also deep, and be creative, right? Be creative here, guys. And then number 5 is, yes, the person who's created this community, and again, this is so important, they need to have a certain level of integration. Otherwise, it's like the blind leading the blind, and it's going to be a disaster. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to lead necessarily, because again, like I said, I don't think that it should be down to one person or 2 or 3, but the person who has birthed this idea, great that you've had this idea, good on you. But like, if you haven't got the tools to literally lead a community, then don't do it. Just let go. Let other people do it who have experience, have integration, have done the shadow work. And that's not to belittle anyone at all. That is just in support of the most highest timeline for everyone involved. When there are clear people who are emotionally intelligent and can also speak in a way that calms people's nervous system down, and that are transparent and honest, that people trust them, like, that's what we need. Those are the people that we need. If you can't do that, then don't do it. Like, and don't take the responsibility of making decisions from your lack of awareness and also lack of integration. And like, again, I'm not being belittling, but I'm just being real. Be honest with yourself. Great that you've managed to pull this dream together, but like, let the people who know what they're doing do it. And within that, number 6 is to have a council. This, again, freaking important. I don't think responsibility should rely on a few people, 1, 2, 3, 4 people. There needs to be a group of people. And again, it's not people that are just random. Again, these are people that are integrated, who have done a lot of shadow work. And I'm talking about like a lot. And sometimes the years don't equate to the experience and the wisdom, because time is, yeah, now. But the point is that to be able to have some group of people who can decide together, and sometimes you might think, oh, but that's so long, da da da. But actually, in that way, we're all learning through each other, and also there's not stress that's just on one person, and also it's not a freaking hierarchy. It's not coming from this place of like, oh, I'm the leader, I'm the freaking capital colonial person, and what I say, like, that energy is not a community. It's just not. It's just not. It's not needed. It's not required. Like, just step down, get, also freaking integrate some level of your ego so that you're not doing that. But anyway. And so number 7 is elders is really important. And again, like I said, sometimes the time in the year and the amount of years that you've been around doesn't equate to your knowledge and wisdom. So elders are elders, but also people are people. But you've got to have elders in your community. Like, elders have so much wisdom, even if they might not see other things, but they've just got so much wisdom. I remember speaking to my granddad, just because they've lived a long life, and he would just say some things that just made so much sense. Like, it's important. So yeah, number 8, confront the ting. Yeah, confrontation is so important. There's no point hiding away, and like, if someone does something, again, that's out of alignment with your values, and again, this is why it's so important to have the values there. But if they're not there, then you can't, well, you can say it, but like, it doesn't make as much sense as if it was already written and they agreed when they came in. Do you know what I mean? The verbal agreement that everyone has with aligning with the values. So when that happens, then, if someone is doing something that most people are acting from their unconscious when they're doing things that are hurting other people or, disrespectful or whatever, it's not coming from a malicious place at all. This is what I feel like we need to understand as humans. And so when someone does something, have a conversation with them. Like, whatever, if that's down to the council to do it, or if it's down to just individuals being self-empowered to say, hey, listen, and speak non-violently, great. But like, again, I think where we are now in the consciousness of the collective, people need support in those conversations at this point. Like, I think a lot of people need to be shown the tools. So we're learning a whole different way of living and operating and being and speaking. And speaking is the highlight, the big part. We're learning a new way of speaking. So it's just like, we need to train ourselves and train each other. So, confrontation is so important because, and if someone is being very difficult, or if someone has a specific shadow where, they flip out or whatever it is, that needs to be spoken to them about right from the start. You need to go in there straight away. Listen, and like I said, non-violently, not not in a way that's rude and undermining, and yeah, you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I've witnessed that a lot when things were not confronted, and then it would just escalate. Avoid the escalation. Literally, you can avoid it, and don't be afraid to have the confrontation. And again, that's what we need to learn through, right? So number 9, truth. And I think this is also so important because we have to be honest with what's happening here. And that ties in with confrontation because, something can happen. There's so many different aspects to the story, but like, we need to be operating on the level of truth from all angles, not just one. We need to be able to hold people accountable from a level of truth. Hey, I know that this, but I need you to also see this. Those are difficult conversations to have, but they need to be had. And also just the truth of, when there's truth, there's trust. So just honesty, being able, and that's also again coming from, the council, the leaders, whatever. But also everyone. To be a good leader, you have to be in truth. Definitely. And I saw so many lies. And I'm not talking about like from the community, I'm talking about from the so-called management, like lying. And that's what I'm talking about, a level of integration, because if you're still at the point where you are lying, you're not embodied. Like, this whole journey is about coming back to our innocence and back to honesty and truth. And eventually you get so sensitive that you can't lie anymore. So you're not there yet, I'm sorry, but like, sorry, not sorry. Again, this is not belittling, but this is just a case of let the leaders who are actually here to bring in this new paradigm, bring it in. That's all. That's it. Oh yeah. 10, gossip culture needs to be squashed. You got to squash that. And again, that's a great example of confronting the ting, because I mean, it's difficult to squash it because again, it depends on people's level of awareness. But as soon as it happens, bring it up, guys. This thing, blah 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 blah. Find a way out of that freaking thing. Honestly, but that's why I feel like the map and the path, the values, everything can help people outside of that. But gossip culture is like a whole different thing, and so that brings on to the next point, number 11, to clear the path for shadow work and responsibility. So shadow work is like the most important thing that is happening in community. Like I said already, when people live together, things come out. In relationship, friendships, any relationships, we are mirroring things for each other. And I want to emphasize that just because someone's mirroring something, it doesn't mean it's bringing out that exact same thing in us. No, it's just showing us a reflection of how we are in reaction to them or in response to them. So it's just bringing some stuff up for us that it's not going to be an exact thing of them. It's just going to show us our reflection. So shadow work is so important. And I feel like a lot of people, again, in the general collective might need support with what this truly means and how to actively do it. And if there isn't a clearly defined way, path, or, like a regular check-in for what this is and how to do it and whatever, again, it's going to be messy. It's going to be a messy, messy place. And it's important to show that to people because, like I said, when we live together, things come up. So what are you doing? Are we blaming people? Are we just playing the victim-victimizer game program over and over and over and over? Or are we going to actually move out of it? And again, that's another point. Confront the ting. Like, let's do the freaking work. That's what we're here for, right? So, and again, things are in the shadows. You don't know what you don't know. So, but in community, we can bring awareness to each other, right? But there needs to be a clearly defined path for shadow work, I think, 100%. And that's not to say, like, one person's right, one person's wrong, like, but when someone does something that's from their unconscious and you bring it up to them and they're in denial and they don't know and they're in a reactionary state or they've been taken back to their past trauma and they can't see what you're saying, like, this is when the path for the shadow work is important, so that awareness of moving through, because again, like, so many people at different stages, and some people think it's okay to speak to someone like this when it's really not, and ideally we're moving into a community with people who are like highly evolved and know how to speak calmly, but it's just unrealistic. It's really unrealistic. So again, it's important to keep coming back to this journey of self-development and healing and inner work. And again, I leave that up to your own creativity. And so number 12, and now this is also very important. Save that one for last, but energy hygiene. Now, there's so many aspects of this topic and things to talk about, but again, hoping that we've called in people who are aligned, then it might not be too much of a problem. But people are at different stages of their journey, and some people are not quite aware of how things are working in the energy realm and energetically. And because of that, they might be doing certain things which they deem to be so completely innocent, when actually they are creating a mess and opening portals, opening spaces for entities from the astral realm to come and play and cause havoc in the space, in the community, because we know how it is. Entities are working through people and it can be quite a disaster. So again, how integrated are you? If you create a community and you don't understand energy, get someone who gets it and trust them. Like, find someone good, obviously. Don't just find any random rando. But find someone good and trust them that they're going to do properly. And it might not just be one person again. It's going to be a group of people, right? But it's important. Like, I feel like the energy part is so important. What is the space that you're even in? Like, have you cleared the energy? Have you cleared the energy in the building, in the walls, in the earth? Like, and what are you creating now? How are you allowing energy to be moved through? How are you allowing the energy to be cleared on a constant basis? Like, maybe you're using certain technologies like crystals, or like, what are you doing? This is so important because I honestly feel like it can create things in the unseen realm that affects the physical seen realm, and you don't know what it is, right? Unless you're actively doing that work. So obviously people who are quite aware of what's going on, we're not going to be creating communities that are just like randomly not really having communication with the land or having communication with the the energetic space and sphere. You know, I'd like to think that a lot of people are now going to be consciously creating these energetic containers, you know, that are here, bringing in the freaking highest frequencies, you know, 12D and beyond, and like, but sometimes it might not be. And in the places where it's a bit loosey-loose and people don't get it, then your own personal energetic hygiene is so important. And obviously it is anyway, just in life, but like, make sure that you know your boundaries. You know how to say no, you know, you don't want to have a conversation, then don't have it. You don't be sucked into someone else's energetic vampire work, and learn how to just clear your field and learn how to clear the space as well. And, you know, there's so much to it. And again, I feel like as we develop in our journey and our path, we just start to do these things naturally because it comes naturally to us, you know. So I think it's really important that we the hygiene is such a big thing, because obviously astral realm is full of beings, and it's messy, it's very messy, and it gets entangled in people's shadows, and then if there's alcohol, they get attached, or if they're doing whatever, like, you know, it's just, there's a lot to it. And really you want to create a space that is clear, that the energy feels simple, easy, and light, and very and clear. Like, we're here to live together and move through our stuff and heal, so let's not try to exaggerate the atmosphere and the vibe by like just doing unconscious things. And it's a bit of a crazy one, because like not everyone knows about this aspect of things, and so it's important that there are people there that know, basically, because if there aren't, like I said, it's just messy. It's just messy, and the sensitive people can feel it, but other people can't. But things are still happening that are just like affecting, you know, the space and how people feel in the space as well. So that's it, really. Those are my 12 things that I've learned through living in community, and I feel like 12 is actually a good number to cover the experience that I had, actually. And I don't feel like there's too much more to add on to it, to be honest. So if you are feeling called to be living in community stuff, like, really take it seriously. It's a lot of reflections and diligence, that coming back to yourself constantly and questioning your own healing, and because this is the work. We're always constantly turning inwards and saying, hey, okay, what's this bringing up for me? And, you know, rather than just immediately reacting to something, we're taking our time with it and learning how to self-regulate and all of that stuff. So that's it, really. Please subscribe to the channel if you feel called, and hit a like on this video if you liked it, and dive into all of the other bits of content. Thanks.